So what was Dollywood like?
Dollywood was so fun. So I did not realize how Tennessee themed it was. I mean, it's called Dollywood, and Dolly's
Wait,
obviously like a
what?
presence there, but
Huh?
it's really not Dolly themed. It's Eastern Tennessee themed. So there's like a ride that like takes place in a collapsed mine, and there's a ride where you're like tracking a bear.
Can I ask, was it a tastefully collapsed mine?
So it was hokey. You know, it was
Oh,
about as tasteful as you could do like a collapsed mine ride.
Hello and welcome to the GD Politics Podcast. I'm Galen. First and foremost, I want to say that I'm thinking of everyone affected by the flash flooding in Texas. The details are heart-wrenching, and here's to hoping that everyone stays safe as more flooding appears to be on its way. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to start off by taking a look back at how Republicans managed to pass a tax and spending bill that so many of the party's own caucus seemed to take issue with. We'll also look ahead to the kinds of political fights over the legislation we expect to emerge. We're also going to round up some other news. So Elon Musk says it's official he's starting the America Party. We all know the structural challenges that lie ahead if he actually does it. But what's the most optimistic case for America? The party, not the country. And what's the most pessimistic? Also this week, the pause on President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs expires on Wednesday. The betting markets are wagering that it's going to be another case of taco. So will it be? We also have one more thing on tap if there's time for it. We are now officially in America's 200th year, the country, not the party. To mark the start of the semi-quincentennial, a word that I learned today, we're going to play a game of American election data trivia. So here with me to do all of that is Jacob Rubashkin, deputy editor of Inside Elections. Welcome to the podcast, Jacob.
Galen, like they say in the song, no place I'd rather be.
Oh, I love to hear it. And also here with us for the first time ever on the GD Politics podcast is Leah Askarinam, reporter at the Associated Press. Leah, welcome. It's so good to have you.
it's so good to be here. I'm so happy to see you. We should do this when we're not on podcast together sometime. So it would be nice.
I know. We truly should. It's been too long. And we're going to start with you. You were on the Hill covering the passage of the bill that was formerly known as the One Big Beautiful Bill Act as it all played out. So I'm curious for your perspective. How did this bill end up passing after Republicans, many Republicans, not everyone, but significant portions of both the House and the Senate trashed this bill throughout the process? How did it end up getting signed by July 4th?
A nuanced answer to that, and there's a very simplified answer to that. The simplified answer, I would say,
it's
is
Trump.
Donald Trump, the president. President Donald Trump. I think it's a simplified answer. Add on Mike Johnson, Speaker Mike Johnson to that as well, who is in kind of constant communication with the president throughout this entire process, which has been going on for months. There were constant meetings over the last few months with different kind of interests within the House, within the Senate, who all have had their red lines or their particular issues. And it kind of reminded me of like everybody was a Joe Manchin when Democrats had that, their narrow majority. And so, every member could leverage their power in a way that they wouldn't be able to if, Republicans had a, normal sized significant majority. So you had on one side, you had the SALT caucus was a big one, state and local tax deductions, which was some New York, California, a kind of mix of the, some of the more suburban Republicans. And then you had a group of members who are really concerned about Medicaid cuts. And that was a really strange coalition. If you look at the Senate, that included Josh Hawley and Susan Collins. What world were we in? And then you had some green energy tax cut stuff. You had, of course, the Freedom Caucus. And Mike Johnson has been saying from the beginning that this process would result in a lot of people being, some people weren't going to be thrilled and the fact that nobody was going to be that happy or that sad meant that it was probably a good deal where everybody was going to get something that they wanted out of a really tiny Republican majority. So I think in the end, I mean, the pressure was huge. Mike Johnson, that last night where the vote was just open for hours, right? And like he was going on TV saying, like, yeah, I think we're just going to leave it open for a bit and waiting for some of the Freedom Caucus members and Chip Roy to get on board. And then, 4 a.m, before you know it, you're seeing, like, you could see on the House floor, Republicans going into the cloakroom and having meetings and coming out and then going back in and then coming back out and going back in. Like, it was just a constant negotiation where I think the pressure to in order to say no, the political consequences for most of these members would have been huge. And so Freedom Caucus members were able to kind of keep their foot down for a lot of the process, keep the pressure on. But in the end, they had to pass a bill by July 4th because Donald Trump said they had to pass a bill by July 4th.
And so maybe the fact that a lot of people were at least somewhat displeased is almost a feature of this process, though now they'll have to sell the bill that they've all just gotten on board with, which we're going to get to in a second. But Jacob, you posted something sort of once the Senate had passed the bill and it moved back to the House. You wrote, sort of quote tweeting a post from Republican Representative Victoria Spartz. Saying, quote, Spartz signaling she doesn't support the bill is once again the best sign it will pass and with her vote. Well, first of all, you were right. Within a day or a little bit more, she ended up ultimately supporting the bill that she had, again, trashed, saying that it didn't follow the framework that the House, at least 30 House Republicans, had laid out. But second, why such little faith in Victoria Spartz? And the broader question of why such little faith in these, like, faux holdouts.
Actually, I quibble with your assertion here.